Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is the series where I interview professionals and find out who they are and what they do. I'm your host, Hiroko Shimoda, and I'm a licensed acupuncturist located in Altamonte Springs, USA. Today, I have a privilege to welcome Ben Latto O'Brien, all the way from Australia. Hi, Ben.
Hello, thank you for having me, Hiroko.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me give you a little bit of background. He is a licensed acupuncturist also, and he has a passion in acupuncture and nutrition. So I look forward to learn more about what he does, what he knows, and how he helps his patients. So Ben, why don't you start off by introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm a practitioner in Perth in Western Australia, and I've recently moved and expanded into a much bigger clinic in Subiaco. So that's where I am at the moment, and I predominantly run the practice using herbs, using acupuncture. I used to do a lot of body work, but I don't do that anymore. I tend to just use herbs and acupuncture and nutritional therapies to treat patients.
Okay, sounds great. So how did you get into acupuncture?
Well, that's a long and complicated question, but let me answer it for you. So I kind of fell into it. My family is very medical, and most of the people in my family have some aspect of Western medicine. So both my grandparents were medical doctors and my mother was an osteopath. 3 of my 4 uncles are medical doctors. I have a naturopath in the family. I have a chiropractor. So I grew up very much in the medical field, and that played an influence on me. But honestly, I wasn't terribly interested in that aspect at all because I just got saturated with it. I didn't go into that out of school. I actually went and became a panel beater and a spray painter. I worked on cars doing smash repair, which is about as far away from the family business as you could get.
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoyed doing. And as I got a bit older, I was 26 when I got diagnosed with an unusual musculoskeletal condition and needed to have emergency open heart surgery. So I had this procedure done in 2005, and the operation went really well. It was a very big procedure of major open heart surgery. And even though the procedure went well, what happened was that something happened to my left hand, and I ended up with a hand that was a claw. And that was a real issue for me because I was an aspiring musician at that age, and all I wanted to do was play music. I was a guitar player. So unfortunately, that was sort of the end of going into a musical career. So, you know, the operation went well, but something had happened to the hand and they didn't pick up on that. I actually had to tell them when I woke up in the emergency, the intensive care unit, that something had happened to my hand. When they said, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. I said, no, it's not fine. Look at my hand. I could move the arm, that was fine, but I couldn't move the hand. And I was very distraught about that. And my surgeon didn't know what happened. They thought maybe it was stroke. They thought maybe it was brain damage. They didn't really know. They did a whole lot of testing on me, and everything came back inconclusive. And if you don't get a diagnosis, it's very hard to know how to actually heal this problem. So I spent the next few years being quite upset and angry and investigating what had happened to my hand. I went to see chiros and physios and neurologists and all kinds of different specialists, and nobody had an answer for me. And, you know, that was really difficult because I wasn't getting any help and I didn't know what to do. And I kind of got to the point where, you know, it was actually a friend of mine said to me, look, Ben, you know, you've tried all these different things. You haven't managed to get a result. Go and try Chinese medicine. And I didn't receive that very well. It wasn't really what I wanted to hear because nobody had explained that that was a reasonable thing to suggest. None of these doctors had suggested that. and no chiro or physio or anyone else that I'd been to thought, you know, that was worth. And I thought, if that was a valid form of treatment, surely somebody would have said to me, why don't you try this? But no one did. So I didn't respond very well to my friend who suggested that. He was Chinese, and he was basically just trying to give me an option. So anyway, I rejected it straight away, and I thought about it for a few days afterwards. And like many people that find Chinese medicine, you don't know what else to do. You try all these different things. You're not getting a result with your health. And so I went and found this person. I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll go and give it a try, knowing full well that it wasn't going to help me and it wasn't going to give any benefit. Or so I thought. That was my mindset at the time. And I went and found this guy who was actually a lecturer at one of the colleges here, the only college that taught Chinese medicine. And he said to me, look, I'm not sure if I can help you or not, but we can try and see. You know, you haven't got a diagnosis. We don't really know what the problem is. So you're just going to have to give it a go and see if it helps you or not. And I wasn't very interested in doing that. He said to me, you know, you need to have a course of treatment. You need to come in once a week for 8 weeks, and we're going to treat you every week, and we're going to see whether you've got, you know, whether we can get you some sort of response. And I said, no, we're not doing that because it's not going to help me. I said, I'll give you one treatment, and if it helps me, I'm coming back. And if it doesn't help me, I'm not coming back. And he said, yeah, okay, let's do that. So he took me in the room, you know, and he talked about yin and yang and qi and blood and all these kind of things I thought was a bit weird, showing the tongue and feel the pulse. And then he put some needles in around my feet and around my neck, and not actually in my hand, which I thought was unusual. But anyway, we got to the end of the treatments, and I remember he walked me up to reception and he said to me, I'll see you next week. And I said, no, you won't. I'll decide that. And he said, yeah, okay, that's fine. So I got in my car and drove back to where I was living at that time, which was a place called Fremantle. And I could hold the steering wheel with the left hand. That wasn't really a problem. And I remember feeling the steering wheel on this drive home. And I remember thinking, I can feel the steering wheel now. I don't know what the hell this guy's done, but something had changed in that amount of time. And I could suddenly have a bit of movement in my left hand. And I thought, that is remarkable. And I remember getting back into my driveway and sitting in the car for probably an hour, just feeling the steering wheel going, something is different here. I don't know what the hell this guy's done, but it's made a difference. And it didn't feel like that now before. So I was just completely blown away that this guy had managed to do something for me that all these so-called professionals with all their letters after their name didn't have any solutions. You know, the heart surgery saved my life. There's no question about that. But it also took away the ability to use my hand. And there was no working diagnosis to go, okay, this is what we do next. So anyway, I went inside and I called him up, this acupuncturist, and I said, book me in for the next, 7 sessions. I'm coming in every week. And every week I went, my hand got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better until I actually got the movement back. And it went from, being a claw to actually being able to use. And I've still got a bit of nerve damage, and I probably always will, but I can actually use my hand now. So I didn't have any money at the end of these treatments. It had really improved a lot, but it still needed more work. And so I thought I wasn't going to go back to panel beating and spray painting. I was going to do something else with my life. And I thought I'll go and study Chinese medicine because I want to still have the ability to work on my hand and see if I can improve that. I wasn't interested in helping other people at this point. It was just me and my journey to fix my hand. And I thought, if I learn this, I can treat myself and I can continue to improve. So that's why I want to study it. No one else in my family does this kind of work. And it is a bit unusual for a Westerner to do that, but most of us have a story about why we've gotten into it, and that's part of mine. So, going through the years of study, I sort of realized after about 2 years that it wasn't just about me and my journey to fix my hand. That was important. But if you can learn this modality and you can help other people that nobody can help, that's a pretty powerful thing. And that's a very cool thing. So that's sort of how I serendipitously just fell into studying Chinese medicine.
That's quite amazing. Yeah, and I think many people, there are many people out there who have a similar experience as you
Sure.
are or where you were, that they go get testing done, seek different specialists, and then they say, we don't know how to help you. The
Mm.
test is inconclusive. You know,
Yep.
the MRI shows fine, your blood test is just fine, but they know that no, something is wrong with me.
Mm.
So my question is, did you know what Chinese medicine was before your Chinese
No,
friend told you?
no, I had no idea. I never had any exposure to it, and like I say, no one had suggested to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I only went and did it because A, I knew it wasn't going to help me, and B, I didn't know what else to do. And for a lot of people that come to the clinic, they're in that situation. So if Western medicine doesn't have any answers, and drugs and surgery, I mean, they offered to operate on my hand, but I'm like, surgery caused this. It's very unlikely that surgery is going to fix it, and it will probably make it worse. And reluctantly, a lot of the specialists agreed that that was a reasonable thing to think. So, you know, having more surgery after just having major open heart surgery, that was not going to be an option for me. And so, I think that I think it's a shame that patients are in the situation that I was in, and they're not actually told that this is a reasonable thing to go and suggest, or at least to be aware that it's a possibility. Because I'm not sure what it's like where you are, Hiroko, but it was never given to me as an option. It was never even suggested that this could be something worth pursuing. So if my friend didn't tell me that, I would be none the wiser. And that's not a good position to be in as a patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I am in Florida, US,
Yep.
and it is similar situation. Acupuncture is not always the first thing that people think about or any other medical professional would suggest to patients. I've been practicing for almost 20 years, and I do see the change though. I do
Yep.
see that other medical doctors are more curious, at least, and some actually talk to patients and suggest it, which is very different from where I am originally from, which is
Yep.
Japan.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, you know, I find it very interesting that you said you went in knowing that it wasn't going to help.
Sure.
And we hear a lot of, oh, you know, it's a placebo effect, meaning it works because you believe it,
Mm-hmm.
but not in your case.
No. No,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So, and sometimes I do prefer patients that come in as skeptics, because in my clinic I do treat a lot of pain and musculoskeletal conditions now. So, um, with skeptics and people like me, or how I was to begin with, you always get the truth, right? You don't get people that are going to make up, yes, they're getting better when they're not, and I don't mind that, because it makes it very clear about, are you actually getting these personal results or not, and they'll tell you very absolutely that yes, it's working, or no, it's definitely not working, and then you try something else, and that's okay. Like it's not one of those things, like you say, that you have to believe in it to make it work. And I see this, you know, every week in my clinic, when you can change someone's pain and it's instant. It actually takes a few seconds for their brain to understand that such a thing is possible. You can see the confused look on their face if they've had pain for years or whatever, and suddenly you can change that and take it away. And I always find that quite amusing, that I have to give them, you know, a few seconds, or sometimes even a few minutes, for them to actually get that cognition in their head to go, wow, things have changed, and it did happen that fast, and it is possible to happen within seconds or minutes. It's a fascinating field, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And let's talk about how acupuncture works. You mentioned that the people will come in with skepticism,
Mhm.
and you can produce the result, or produce good result instantly like that.
Yeah.
Now, when people get result on their first visit, is that all they need to do, or do they need to come back?
Yeah, so usually I'll do a testing regime. So when I have a new patient in, I will get them, I'll first of all do what's called an initial exam, which doesn't involve the treatment. It's just basically sitting down with me, taking the full case history, going through any medical records that need to be done, doing any sort of physical testing that needs to be done. And I have to think it's feasible that I will actually take this patient in for treatments, and I've got to work that out before. I don't just start treating patients. I do a full analysis to begin with. And then if I think it's feasible, we talk about doing a sequence of treatments, usually 3 in a week, to see whether I can actually get them a result or not. And the idea behind that is to have a definitive way of telling that the patient's actually going to get a result or not. And you know by the end of those 3 sessions if you can actually help someone or not. So I try and make it very clinical because, you know, that's the way that I've been trained. And I think patients appreciate that. And then they know it's not, you know, there's no hit and miss. It's either, yes, they're getting better, or no, they're not getting better. They're not seeing any result. And it's good peace of mind for them because they will know immediately whether you can actually help them or not. And so will the practitioner. So that's sort of the process, doing an initial exam, then doing a whole lot of testing, usually 3 treatments in a week. And then when I have that information, I can talk about a sort of treatment plan that they're going to need to help them with their stiff neck or arthritis or stomach problems or whatever it is that they come in for. And, you know, that's really the way, it's not the way I was trained to begin with, but it's something I've learned from one of my mentors. And it's a very logical way of treating. And I think patients appreciate that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a system to tell if the acupuncture is worth pursuing for someone or not. Yep. And also that even though on their first visit, they may get a wow, like, you know, I can't believe my 20-year pain is, you know, is better, but it's not a magic either. So you will make a plan for them and they will need to follow, and you will help them achieve. For example, I think it sounds like the motivation for you to seek this strange Chinese medicine was because nobody could help you, 1, and 2, that you were a guitar player and this condition was preventing you from enjoying what your love was.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my next question is, you told me that your whole family is in medical field. When you decided to go to Chinese medicine, what was your family's reaction? Because everybody is Western medicine, right?
Most of them are, yes. I don't think they really thought about it that much or had much of a reaction either way, because it's quite foreign from what they do. They didn't really know anything about it. So I think that some of them were amused and thought it was interesting that I was going to do something that was, you know, still medical but very different than anything else, because it is such a unique and complete way of viewing the body. Western practitioners don't really get any exposure to it or really understand how it works or what's involved in Chinese medicine, because, you know, it's a very different way of thinking and looking at the body and viewing the body. So I think my mum was very pleased, actually, that I was going to become a clinician like she was, because she was an osteopath for 55 years. That's all she did. She got that job out of school, and that's what she did with her life. So she was quite pleased, and she didn't really mind what it was. She just thought it was interesting that I'd finally decided to follow some aspect of medicine like the rest of my family did. But the rest of my family, my uncles, etc., they probably didn't really have an opinion about it, because it's just not something that they were exposed to or knew anything about. So it was very foreign for them. And then they may have, you know, may have thought it was interesting or whatever, but it's just such an abstract type of medicine compared to what they're used to. In Western medicine, like most of the world, Western doctors don't get exposure to nutrition. They're not taught about it. They're not taught about any sort of other complementary therapy unless they go out and study it specifically, which is a real mistake in my opinion. So I think that they just, you know, thought it was amusing, but they didn't really have an opinion about it either way.
I see. Okay. So when did the nutrition come into picture?
Well, nutrition is something that I always grew up with. And my grandfather was a very well-known doctor in England, who really was more of a nutritionist than a medical doctor. He very rarely prescribed Western drugs, even though he was a GP, a general practitioner of Western medicine. And he often talked about nutrition and the importance of it. And so this was just something that I grew up with. And it's sort of a long, complicated story. But basically, when I went to study, I had to do a lot of years study in this college. It wasn't set up terribly well, and a lot of people that go to my college have this experience where it's difficult and complicated and not terribly well run. So I didn't mean to study nutrition. I started doing 2 years in Perth, and then I realised I wasn't actually getting the subjects, and I couldn't continue with the study because the subjects just weren't being offered in this part of Australia. So I actually had to move to Melbourne and start again and do another 4 years in Melbourne. So it looked like I was going to have to do 6 years of full-time study to do a 4-year acupuncture degree. And that didn't sit with me very well. But when I looked at the curriculum for Chinese medicine and for nutrition, I'd seen that I'd done 3/4 of a nutrition degree already with the study that I'd done. So there was just a few extra subjects I had to do in some of the clinical work to end up with a degree in nutrition as well. And I've always been interested in it, and I thought that was reasonable. I'll do 6 years to end up with 2 degrees, but I'm not going to do 6 years to end up with 1 degree. So I didn't really mean to study it. It's just kind of how it worked out. But it worked out for the best, really. So I'm very pleased that I did that, because they're very complementary. And I thought that when I was studying Chinese medicine, I saw a real flaw in patients or the treatment process, which was most of them had dietary inadequacies, or diet was contributing to their ill health in some way, shape or form. But yet, if they were coming for acupuncture, you didn't really have time to address that. And I saw that was a real mistake, because if nutrition was the missing component, nutrition was the thing they actually needed to work on to get their body to where it needed to be. So, that was important, because nutrition is so powerful, a bit like Chinese medicine. But nutrition is the one modality that will affect every single different body system. It doesn't matter, obviously, about your stomach, but also your hormones, your nervous system, your digestive system, your cardiovascular function. Everything is affected by nutrition. So to sort of negate that and think, well, that's not that important, I realized was a real mistake. And so I use nutrition a lot in my clinic, because it's so fundamental for helping the building blocks of people. And I explain it to patients like nutrition is the foundation in which you build your house. If you haven't got the foundation right, your house is going to be rickety and it's going to fall down. It's not going to be strong. It doesn't matter how good you are with herbs or acupuncture or whatever. If nutrition is a problem, that's the thing that needs to be fixed. And once the foundation of the house is strong, then you can actually move forward with your health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Ben I see on your Facebook page, I enjoy your post, especially on the weekend when you go to farmers market and come home with all these beautiful produces. And sometimes you will upload a video of your cooking and the finished product. And recently I saw that you started your own garden as well. I have.
I've just put in all the winter vegetables here. So that's the time. We're in autumn now here in Perth, and winter is coming. So it's something that I'm passionate about. I really love to grow plants, and it's not that difficult to do. And I think, that's a very important part of utilizing nutrition properly, to understand the seasons and understand what's growing in what season and what you should be eating. So, the problem with the way the world is set out at the moment is that you can always have some sort of produce at any time of year, because somewhere it's always summer. So you can always get tropical fruit, for example. But, in the middle of winter, eating things like pineapples and mangoes is not what the body needs at that point in time. That's not the food that's grown in this part of the world, and you shouldn't really be eating that. So I'm a big proponent of, going to farmers markets, because you're buying local produce, you're seeing what's being produced seasonally, and it's much fresher and it's much better quality than going to supermarkets. So that's something that I do religiously every week, and I always have. And everyone wins. You support the local schools. the venues for these places. You're supporting the local farmers, and you're getting better quality produce. So there's no downsides to that.
Absolutely. So I think there are a lot of people out there who wants to eat right, but don't know where to start, or sometimes you don't have time, right? So one of the things that I picked up in your what you talked about is to eat according to season.
Sure.
What else can you suggest for busy people to start? Where can people start as far as nutrition is concerned, just to help their diet better?
Yeah, I think that I used to allow people to get away with saying that they're too busy. I don't do that anymore. I think that if you're too busy, your priorities aren't in the right place. And nutrition is too important to say, well, I haven't got time and I'm not going to put in the effort, because if that's how you think, you're not going to have a foundation built properly. So nutrition doesn't have to be difficult. It can be very quick and easy to prepare nutritious meals. But yes, it takes a bit of effort, a bit like working on your health. It's the same sort of principle. If you want to be healthy, you have to put in some effort. You can't just be microwaving, pre-prepared food and think that you will, get away with that. Because over time, that will erode your health. And, it's definitely important to get passionate about cooking simple meals. It doesn't need to take a long time. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes. I'm busy too with the work that I do in the clinic, and I don't always have an hour to prepare a meal. I understand that, but it doesn't need to take that long. If you have the produce, first of all, you've got to have the produce in your fridge, right? Otherwise, you just go to the cupboard and you'll get whatever is available. And if you haven't got the ingredients you need, well, then you're going to have a pretty average meal. So I think it's important it takes me 1 hour a week to go to the farmers markets. 1 hour a week. That's not a big commitment to be able to get all the food I need for the week. So everyone can find that time. If it's important to you, you'll do that. And then just getting some basic sort of culinary skills. I don't use a lot of different ingredients. I find that the body does best to have a similar kind of food over and over and over. And you can dress it up and make it a bit different so it's not boring. But you sort of need to find out what is the sort of food that you like that actually works with your body. And that's what you build your diet around. And I'm a big believer in teaching patients to listen to your body, because your body will never lie. And doing some dietary tracking is important. So getting them to write down everything they eat and drink over 7 days, and actually be a bit analytical with going, okay, these are the foods that you're eating. These are the foods that make you feel good. When you eat this, you have problems. Your stomach is worse. Your headaches are worse. Your muscle pain's worse. Whatever it is, and to be a bit analytical about how you're actually going to do that. And that's how you help people learn what's right for them, because everyone's a bit different. Everyone needs some different dietary strategies, and it's very much a trial and error with testing to work out what's right for the individual.
Okay, so what I learned in this interview is that you have to take ownership of your body, health, and your diet. And it is your responsibility to take care of yourself, and it's an investment.
Yep.
All right. So I hope Ben's story will inspire people out there to give this Chinese medicine a try. Also, start maybe thinking about the diet, and start from, like he said, start with the food that you like and have different variations, and listen to your body, what your body likes, and avoid if something bad happens to your body when you eat something.
Yeah, very much so. So, if you're not sure what's around, I would advise anyone to put the effort in to get to the farmers market. At least then you'll start to understand what's growing in your region, and what sort of foods should. Now it's going into autumn. It's different here in Perth than what it was a few months ago when it was summer. So the diet should also reflect that. And if you eat in terms of being in rhyme and rhythm with the environment, I think that there's a lot of health aspects and positive things to get out of that. And, you know, we sort of lose that along the way with the fact that the food is available at any point in time. You can buy whatever you want from a supermarket. That isn't necessarily a good thing. And, you know, if anyone goes and buys like apples or oranges or whatever that's really out of season, there's a reason why it tastes really bad. It doesn't taste nice because it's been kept in cold storage for however long. And that's just showing that you shouldn't be eating that food at that particular point in time. So my advice, the first step always is get to the farmers markets, find out what's being produced locally and start to base your diet around that. And if you haven't had exposure to this, well, then it's time to go and do that.
Yeah. So a supermarket is great. We cannot, you know, go and get apple year round, but we don't realize that it's actually not so natural.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So Ben, where can people find you? They live in Australia. You're in Perth. So where can they find you? And if they are interested in contacting you or have questions, where can they find your contact info?
We might put a link in this somewhere, but my clinic, I've just opened up a new clinic in Subiaco. So I'm in Perth in Subiaco, and that's where the new clinic is. And we might need to put their website and maybe a phone number. And if patients want to give me a call or send me an email, and just have a talk about their case and, you know, whether it would be appropriate to come in or not, I'm completely open to doing that. I don't mind at least having a 5-10 minute dialogue with people on the phone or via email, and just begin to discuss whether it's actually worth them coming in to talk about, you know, how Chinese medicine and nutrition might be able to benefit them.
Okay, so I will add your clinic's information. Sure. And the phone number and so forth. So if you're in Perth, or if people can email you, or they don't have to be in Perth, do they?
They don't necessarily know. I do have patients that are all over the world, and I have, because West Australia is a very big state. I do have people that are up north 1,000 kilometres, and I do some telehealth. They still want to be able to have herbs and they want to have nutrition. They obviously can't come in for acupuncture, but that's okay. There are other ways that we can help them, treat them. And just because you live far away doesn't mean that you can't get access to some of this information. So if you're interested, then yeah, definitely get in contact with the clinic.
Okay, so great. If you don't have to live in Perth, no matter where you are in the world, if you're interested in talking to Ben, definitely reach out to him. Ben, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you for your time, Maroko.
Okay.